Some places are so isolated, they feel like a completely different world, like Tristan da Cunha, an island so far away from the rest of the world that your closest neighbors are over 2,400 kilometers across the ocean. This tiny volcanic island is part of a British overseas territory in the South Atlantic Ocean. It might technically be under the UK's flag, but the way of life here couldn't be more different from modern Britain. For starters, there's no airport. The only way to reach Tristan is by sea, and even that isn't easy. Ships leave from South Africa, but the journey takes at least a week across open waters. The island is so remote that when someone says, "I'll swing by later," they're talking about in 5 months, on a boat, if the weather agrees. Now, let's talk about the island itself. Tristan da Cunha looks like something straight out of a storybook. It's surrounded by steep green cliffs and has a giant volcanic peak rising in the middle. Often capped with mist, there's one main village on the island called Edinburgh of the Seven Seas. But don't let the fancy name fool you. It's not a bustling city. Only about 250 people live on the entire island, and they all know each other. They're not just neighbors, they're family. Almost everyone is descended from just a handful of settlers who came here almost 200 years ago. If you think small towns are bad for dating, imagine trying Tinder here. Sorry, no matches. Unless you're into Steve, again. Life on Tristan is simple and self-reliant. The islanders grow potatoes, which they call their lifeblood, and they fish for crayfish, which is one of their main exports. They also raise sheep and chicken for food. There are no big grocery stores or fast food chains here. If you need something that can't be grown, caught, or made on the island, you'll have to wait for the next supply ship to bring it. And those ships don't come very often, sometimes just a handful of times a year. And what about modern conveniences like the internet? It exists, but it's extremely limited and expensive. So instead of scrolling on their phones, people spend time talking to each other, sharing meals, and working together. Life here is slower, quieter, and more connected, just not in the way most of us think of connection today. The only thing scarier than how far this island is from everything? The thought of running out of snacks and realizing the nearest grocery store is in South Africa. But don't be fooled into thinking life on Tristan is always idyllic. Living in such isolation comes with challenges. For example, there's only one small medical clinic on the island. If someone gets seriously ill or injured, they have to be evacuated by ship to South Africa, a process that can take days or even weeks, depending on the weather. And speaking of weather, it can be brutal. Strong winds and rough seas are common, making life even more challenging. So why do people stay? For islanders, Tristan da Cunha isn't just a place to live, it's home. They're deeply proud of their unique culture and close-knit community. Here, you're not just another face in the crowd. Everyone looks out for each other. And there's a strong sense of belonging. Plus, the natural beauty of the island is breathtaking, with its dramatic landscapes, untouched wildlife, and endless ocean views. It's a place unlike anywhere else on Earth. But now, imagine a place so isolated that only about 50 people live there. The entire population could fit into a single bus. Welcome to Pitcairn Island, a tiny dot in the Pacific Ocean and one of the most remote inhabited places on the planet. Pitcairn is part of a group of 4 islands, but only one is inhabited. It's a British overseas territory, but it's not your typical piece of the UK. The island is over 5,500 kilometers away from New Zealand, the nearest country, and the only way to get there is by ship. No airports, no ferries, just occasional supply boats that make the journey a few times a year. The population is just 50 people, so family reunions and town meetings are basically the same thing. So how did people end up living in such a far-flung place? The story of Pitcairn is as wild as the island itself. Its first settlers were a group of British sailors from the infamous Mutiny on the Bounty. In 1789, these mutineers took control of the HMS Bounty, set their captain adrift, and eventually fled to Pitcairn to hide. They burned their ship to avoid being found, and the remains of the Bounty's hull can still be seen underwater near the island today. Those mutineers, along with a handful of Polynesians they brought with them, became the founding families of Pitcairn, and to this day, almost everyone on the island is descended from that small group. With such a tiny population, life on Pitcairn feels more like a big family gathering than a traditional community. Everyone knows everyone else's business, and they kind of have to. In such an isolated place, cooperation, is the key to survival. Life here is about simplicity and resourcefulness. The islanders grow fruits and vegetables in their gardens and fish in the surrounding ocean. Bartering and sharing are a way of life because there's no supermarket, no shopping mall, and definitely no Amazon deliveries. If you need something from the outside world, you'll have to order it months in advance and wait for the next supply ship to arrive. So if you forget to order toilet paper, you're making some tough choices for 3 months. And while the scenery is stunning, life on Pitcairn isn't always easy. The island is rugged with steep cliffs and lush forests, but the terrain makes it hard to get around. There's only one main road called the Hill of Difficulty, which gives you an idea of just how challenging it is to navigate the island. Electricity is limited to a few hours a day, and internet access is slow and expensive. But despite these challenges, the people of Pitcairn have a strong sense of pride in their home. They live surrounded by untouched nature, pristine beaches, dramatic cliffs, and some of the clearest night skies you'll ever see. It's a stargazer's paradise. The waters around Pitcairn are also a marine sanctuary, teeming with colorful fish and coral reefs. For the islanders, this is their world, their heritage, and their sanctuary. However, there's a growing problem. The population is shrinking. With only about 50 residents left, many of whom are older, the island faces an uncertain future. The government has even tried to attract new settlers by offering free land. But living on Pitcairn requires a certain kind of person, someone who can embrace isolation and self-reliance. However, imagine standing on a windswept island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, surrounded by mysterious giant stone statues staring silently into the distance. This is Easter Island, or Rapa Nui, as the locals call it, a place shrouded in mystery, history, and incredible isolation. Easter Island is part of Chile, but it's located over 3,500 kilometers away from the mainland. That's about a 5-hour flight over endless ocean, with no land in sight. In fact, it's one of the most isolated places on Earth. But despite its remoteness, this tiny island has fascinated people for centuries. Why? Because of its moai, the iconic stone statues that are found nowhere else in the world. The moai are massive, some towering over 10 meters tall and weighing more than 80 tons. And here's the big question. How did the ancient Rapa Nui people carve these enormous statues and move them across the island without modern tools or technology? Even today, archaeologists are still debating how they pulled it off. Some believe they used wooden sledges or ropes, while others think the statues were walked into place by rocking them back and forth. Whatever the method, it was an extraordinary achievement. But the moai are just one part of the story. The people of Rapa Nui arrived here around 1,000 years ago, navigating thousands of kilometers of open ocean in canoes. Imagine the courage it took to set out into the unknown, with nothing but the stars and the waves to guide them. They built a thriving society, farming, fishing, and creating a unique culture centered around the moai and their spiritual beliefs. Over time though, life on Easter Island became harder. The population grew, and so did the pressure on the island's limited resources. Trees were cut down for farming and building, but without forests, the land became less fertile and food grew scarcer. By the time Europeans arrived in the 1700s, the island society had gone through major changes, including conflicts over resources and struggles for survival. Today, Easter Island is home to about 8,000 people, many of whom are descendants of the ancient Rapa Nui. Life here is still shaped by its isolation. Almost everything, food, fuel, even basic supplies, has to be shipped or flown in from Chile. Tourism is the island's main source of income, with visitors coming from all over the world to see the moai and experience the unique culture of Rapa Nui. But Easter Island is more than just its famous statues. It's a living, breathing community. The islanders are proud of their heritage, and they work hard to preserve their traditions, from ancient dances and songs to the Rapa Nui language. And while the island is remote, it's also a place where people feel deeply connected to their history, their land, and each other. Easter Island is a reminder of both human ingenuity and fragility. The moai are a testament to the incredible achievements of the Rapa Nui people, but the challenges they faced also serve as a cautionary tale about the importance of balance between people and nature. Standing on this island, surrounded by the endless Pacific Ocean, you can't help but feel both awe and respect for the people who made this place their home. But now, imagine an island so remote, so desolate, that no one actually lives there, not even for research. This is Bouvet Island, often called the most isolated place on Earth. Owned by Norway, Bouvet Island sits in the freezing waters of the South Atlantic Ocean, more than 2,200 kilometers from the nearest landmass. If you think of the middle of nowhere, Bouvet is even farther. Bouvet Island is tiny, only about 49 square kilometers, but it's not your typical tropical paradise. Instead of beaches and palm trees, it's covered almost entirely by ice and surrounded by treacherous seas. The island is a massive volcanic peak rising straight out of the ocean, with sheer cliffs that make it nearly impossible to land. In fact, it wasn't even discovered until 1739 when a French explorer stumbled upon it. And even then, it took over 80 years for anyone to confirm its location because it's so remote and hard to reach. The weather on Bouvet is brutal. Think howling winds, freezing temperatures, and endless storms. It's one of the least hospitable places on Earth, and the only permanent residents are seals, penguins, and seabirds. Despite this, Bouvet Island is technically a nature reserve, protected by Norway to ensure its pristine environment stays untouched. What's fascinating about Bouvet is how mysterious it feels. Few people have ever set foot on the island, and even fewer have spent any significant time there. One of the most intriguing events happened in 1964 when a lifeboat was found washed ashore on Bouvet Island. There were no signs of passengers, no shipwrecks nearby, and no explanation for how it got there. To this day, it remains an unsolved mystery. Bouvet Island also has a unique place in the modern world. Because it's so isolated and uninhabited, it's sometimes used as a reference point for scientific studies. Its remote location makes it a perfect spot for tracking ocean currents, studying marine life, or even using it in space exploration communications. However, because of the extreme conditions, most expeditions to Bouvet are brief, lasting just long enough to collect data before leaving the island behind. So why does Bouvet Island exist in the public imagination at all? Its extreme isolation makes it almost mythical, a place where nature rules completely, untouched by human hands. It's a reminder that even in our connected world, there are still places where humans are mere visitors and the earth remains wild and untamed. Bouvet Island isn't a place you'd visit for a vacation or to start a new life. It's not even a place where people can survive for very long, but its icy cliffs and stormy seas stand as a testament to the raw power of nature and the limits of human reach. It's a stark, frozen jewel in the middle of nowhere, a place that might just be the most off-the-grid spot on the planet. However, now picture a tropical paradise in the middle of the Indian Ocean. White sandy beaches, crystal clear waters, and swaying palm trees. Now imagine that this paradise is nearly impossible for most people to visit. Welcome to Diego Garcia, a remote atoll that's as controversial as it is beautiful. Diego Garcia is part of the British Indian Ocean Territory, located about 1,600 kilometers south of India and Sri Lanka. Shaped like a horseshoe, the island is surrounded by a vibrant coral reef and teeming with marine life. But don't let its postcard-perfect appearance fool you. This is no ordinary island. For centuries, Diego Garcia was home to a small community of islanders known as the Chagosians, who lived simple, self-sufficient lives, fishing, farming coconuts, and raising livestock. However, everything changed in the 1960s and 1970s when the island's strategic location caught the attention of military powers. The United Kingdom leased Diego Garcia to the United States, and the atoll was transformed into a massive military base. To make way for the base, the Chagosians were forcibly removed from their homes and relocated to places like Mauritius and the Seychelles. This expulsion remains a deeply painful and unresolved issue, with the displaced Chagosians still fighting for their right to return. Today, Diego Garcia is a heavily restricted military facility jointly operated by the US and the UK. The base is strategically located in the heart of the Indian Ocean, making it a key site for surveillance, refueling aircraft, and supporting naval operations. During major global conflicts, including the Gulf War and the war in Afghanistan, Diego Garcia played a critical role in military logistics. What's life like on Diego Garcia now? For the few thousand personnel stationed there, mainly US military and contractors, it's a mix of work and isolation. While the base has modern amenities like gyms, dining facilities, and recreational areas, the island remains cut off from the outside world. Civilians, tourists, and even the former inhabitants are not allowed to visit without special permission. It's a stark contrast to the idyllic surroundings, where sea turtles nest on the beaches and coconut crabs scuttle across the sand. Diego Garcia also holds an important place in environmental conservation. The surrounding waters are part of a massive marine protected area established by the UK, one of the largest in the world. This ensures that the coral reefs, fish, and other marine species around the island remain largely untouched by human activity. However, this designation has sparked further controversy, with critics arguing that it was designed to block the Chagosians from ever returning. For all its beauty, Diego Garcia is a place of deep contradictions. It's a pristine tropical island that's been shaped by global politics, military strategy, and human displacement. It's a place most people will only ever see on a map, yet its impact stretches far beyond its shores. Diego Garcia is a reminder of the complexities of our world, a place where paradise meets power, and where the question of who truly belongs remains unresolved. But now, imagine a place so far north that the next stop is the North Pole. Welcome to Alert, a tiny settlement in Canada's Arctic that holds the title of the northernmost permanently inhabited place on Earth. It's not a city or even a town, just a cluster of buildings clinging to the edge of the icy wilderness. Alert sits on the northern tip of Ellesmere Island in Nunavut, about 817 kilometers from the North Pole. To put that in perspective, it's closer to the pole than it is to the nearest tree. The environment here is extreme. Temperatures regularly plunge to -40 degrees Celsius in the winter, and the sun disappears for months during the long polar night. It's not a place you choose to live unless you had a very specific reason to be there. And the people who are here, they're mostly military personnel, scientists, and weather experts. Alert is home to a Canadian Forces station that monitors global communications and keeps an eye on Arctic activity. It also hosts a weather station, which has been operating since the 1950s. The data collected here is critical for understanding the Arctic climate and forecasting weather patterns that affect the entire planet. Life in Alert is unlike anywhere else. Supplies arrive by plane, weather permitting, and residents live in small insulated buildings designed to withstand the harsh conditions. The isolation is profound. There's no road, no town nearby, just endless stretches of ice and snow. Communication with the outside world is limited, so people rely on each other for support, creating a tight-knit community. But what's truly unique about Alert is its environment. The Arctic landscape is breathtaking, with jagged mountains, frozen seas, and endless white horizons. In the winter, the skies are dark for 24 hours a day, often lit up by the eerie green glow of the aurora borealis. In the summer, the sun never sets, bathing the icy world in constant daylight. It's a place of extremes, silent, desolate, and stunningly beautiful. However, living in Alert comes with challenges. The cold is relentless, and the isolation can be tough on mental health. Even simple tasks, like going outside, require preparation to avoid frostbite or hypothermia. The environment also demands respect. This is polar bear territory, and the Arctic wilderness is unforgiving. Despite these challenges, Alert plays a vital role in the modern world. Its location makes it a strategic site for monitoring global communications and tracking changes in the Arctic. The information gathered here helps scientists study climate change, a phenomenon that's transforming the Arctic faster than any other region on Earth. Alert isn't just a place, it's a testament to human resilience and ingenuity. It's a reminder that even in the most extreme corners of the world, people find ways to live, work, and adapt. It's a place where the frozen silence of the Arctic meets the cutting edge of science and technology. For those who have been to Alert, it's an experience they never forget. Few people will ever see it firsthand, but this tiny settlement stands as a symbol of humanity's determination to explore and understand even the most isolated places on Earth. Alert may be at the edge of human habitation, But what if we go even further to the bottom of the Earth? Welcome to McMurdo Station, the largest scientific research hub in Antarctica and one of the most remote outposts on Earth. Located on the southern tip of Ross Island, McMurdo is surrounded by an icy wilderness that feels like another planet. It's a place where temperatures can drop to -50 degrees Celsius. The sun disappears for months during the polar winter, and the nearest civilization is thousands of kilometers away. Despite its harsh environment, McMurdo is bustling by Antarctica standards. During the summer months, up to 1,000 scientists, engineers, and support staff live and work here, making it the closest thing Antarctica has to a small town. But don't expect cozy cottages or neighborhood parks. The station is made up of functional buildings and labs designed to withstand the brutal conditions, with a backdrop of glaciers, mountains, and frozen seas. McMurdo Station is operated by the United States and serves as the logistical hub for scientific research across the continent. It was established in 1955 during the International Geophysical Year as part of a global effort to explore the planet's most extreme frontiers. Since then, it's become the launchpad for groundbreaking research on everything from climate change to astronomy. Researchers study the continent's unique ecosystems, drill into ancient ice cores to understand Earth's climate history, and observe the skies, where the lack of light pollution offers an unparalleled view of the universe. Antarctica is also considered a natural laboratory for studying life in extreme environments, offering clues about how organisms might survive on other planets. But McMurdo isn't just about science. It's also a community. The station has its own dining hall, gym, library, and even a small chapel. There's a fire department, medical facilities, and even a post office. People come here from all over the world, creating a diverse and close-knit community bound by a shared sense of purpose and a shared battle against the freezing cold. The daily routine at McMurdo is shaped by the environment. In summer, the sun never sets, casting the icy landscape in an endless, blinding daylight. Winter, on the other hand, brings 24-hour darkness, fierce winds, and bone-chilling temperatures. Venturing outside requires careful preparation, and even short trips can be dangerous if the weather turns. One of the biggest challenges of living at McMurdo is isolation. Supply ships and planes bring in food, fuel, and equipment, but they can only operate during the brief Antarctic summer. For months at a time, the station is completely cut off from the outside world, and everyone has to rely on what's already there. It's a test of resilience, adaptability, and teamwork. Despite these challenges, many who have worked at McMurdo describe it as a life-changing experience. The natural beauty of Antarctica is like nowhere else. Towering ice cliffs, vast expanses of white, and wildlife like penguins and seals. It's a place of extremes where the silence is so profound it feels almost otherworldly. McMurdo Station is more than just a research post. It's a symbol of human curiosity and determination. It stands at the edge of the world, where people come together to push the boundaries of knowledge and explore the unknown. It's proof that even in the harshest conditions, we can find ways to survive, thrive, and learn from the planet's most isolated corners. But now, imagine living at the bottom of the world, where the ground beneath your feet is an endless sheet of ice 2 miles thick, and the nearest human settlement is over 800 miles away. Welcome to the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station, a research outpost perched exactly at the Earth's southernmost point. It's not just remote, it's an extreme test of human willpower and ingenuity. Life here feels like living on another planet. For starters, the sun rises only once a year and sets 6 months later. During the long winter, which lasts from February to October, the station is plunged into pitch-black darkness. Step outside, and the temperature can plummet to an unthinkable -100 degrees Fahrenheit or -73 degrees Celsius. This isn't the kind of cold you complain about on a snowy day. This is the kind of cold that freezes your breath midair and can frostbite your skin in minutes. In these conditions, leaving the station isn't just a casual walk, it's a calculated mission. Anyone venturing outside wears layers of specialized gear, and even then, the icy winds feel like a constant reminder that Antarctica is the most inhospitable place on Earth. So what happens when winter begins? Flights stop completely. For 8 months, no planes can land or take off because the fuel freezes solid and the risks are too high. The last plane out marks a kind of farewell ceremony. After that, the few dozen researchers and staff are entirely on their own. Whatever food, medical supplies, or tools they have must last them through the winter. If they run out of something, well, improvisation becomes their best friend. Inside the station, life is a mix of science and survival. The crew, a blend of scientists, engineers, and support staff, spends their days conducting groundbreaking research. They're studying the universe through telescopes that can only work in this crystal clear, pollution-free sky. They examine the mysteries locked beneath the Antarctic ice, which could hold secrets about Earth's past climate or even clues to life on other planets. But let's be honest, what about the human side? Spending months in isolation, far from family and surrounded by the same small group of people, can be just as challenging as the freezing temperatures. Relationships are tested, personalities clash, and the sense of cabin fever is very real. That's why bonding activities, movie nights, and even impromptu talent shows are a must to keep morale up. And yes, the little things matter. A fresh cup of coffee, a well-timed joke, or just someone to play cards with can make all the difference. When summer finally comes and the sun rises again, it's like the world is waking up. The first supply planes bring not just food and equipment, but also the hope of connection to the outside world. Yet, many who endure the winter say it changes them. It's not just the isolation or the extreme conditions, it's the realization that they've lived in one of the harshest environments on the planet and come out stronger for it. The Amundsen Scott's South Pole Station isn't just a place, it's a testament to human resilience and curiosity. It's where people push the boundaries of what's possible, proving that even in the most isolated corners of the Earth, the human spirit can adapt, survive, and thrive. However, now imagine a city so remote that the only way to get there is by plane or boat. There are no roads leading in or out. Welcome to Iquitos, Peru, the largest city in the world you can't reach by car. Hidden deep in the heart of the Amazon rainforest, Iquitos is surrounded by endless jungles and winding rivers, making it one of the most isolated urban centers on Earth. Iquitos feels like an island, but instead of being surrounded by water, it's enveloped by a vast, living ocean of tropical rainforest. The Amazon River, the mightiest river in the world, flows right through it. Dense, uncharted wilderness stretches for hundreds of miles in every direction, making Iquitos feel like a city on the edge of the unknown. The only way to reach this city is by flying in or taking a long winding boat journey through the Amazon's labyrinth of rivers. A trip that can take days, even weeks. No highways, no railways, just nature's untamed pathways. It's like stepping into an adventure film where civilization meets the wild. Despite its isolation, Iquitos is anything but a forgotten outpost. It's a lively, bustling city with over 400,000 residents, blending indigenous cultures with colonial history and modern Peruvian life. The city's unique story goes back to the 19th century rubber boom, when wealthy rubber barons turned Iquitos into a booming, extravagant hub. One of them even imported a building designed by Gustave Eiffel, the same architect behind the Eiffel Tower. But when the rubber trade collapsed, Iquitos was left stranded, cut off from the world. Over time, it evolved into a vibrant cultural hotspot, fueled by tourism, trade, and its deep connection to the surrounding rainforest. Living in Iquitos means adapting to the rhythm of the Amazon. The rainforest is always just a step away, bringing its wonders and challenges right to the city's doorstep. Howler monkeys call from the trees, macaws flash bright colors through the sky, and exotic fruits you've never heard of are sold at open-air markets. But life here isn't all about jungle magic. The humid tropical climate means endless heat, sudden downpours, and plenty of mosquitoes. The Amazon River also plays a central role in daily life, providing food, transportation, and even a sense of identity for the people who call Iquitos home. Boats are as essential here as cars are in most cities. From wooden canoes to motorized river taxis called peque-peques, water travel is a way of life. For adventure seekers, Iquitos is a gateway to the mysteries of the Amazon. From here, you can set off on epic jungle expeditions, explore wildlife-rich national parks, or visit indigenous villages where traditions stretch back thousands of years. You might spot pink river dolphins, jaguars, or even elusive anacondas. Often visit Belen Market, an open-air bazaar offering everything from fresh fish and exotic fruits to mystical potions brewed by local shamans. It's a place where the mystical and the everyday collide. A reminder that the Amazon is as much about culture and spirit as it is about nature. Despite its isolation, Iquitos thrives with a unique spirit of resilience. Its people have built a vibrant, dynamic community in one of the most remote places on Earth, blending tradition with modern life while staying deeply connected to the rainforest. Being cut off from the rest of the world has shaped Iquitos into something truly special. It's not just a city, it's a living story of survival, adaptation, and cultural fusion, where humanity and nature coexist in an extraordinary and unforgettable way. But now, imagine stepping into a place so strange and otherworldly that it feels like you've landed on an alien planet. Welcome to Socotra, an isolated island in the Arabian Sea, about 220 miles, or 350 kilometers, off the coast of Yemen. This remote paradise is often called the Galapagos of the Indian Ocean because of its mind-boggling biodiversity. Nearly a third of its plant life exists nowhere else on Earth. Socotra has been isolated from the mainland for millions of years, allowing nature to create a living laboratory of weird and wonderful life forms. Its harsh, arid environment, rocky plateaus, and jagged mountains might seem like the last place anything could survive, but life here found a way. The island's most famous resident is the Dragon's Blood Tree, a bizarre umbrella-shaped tree that looks like something straight out of a fantasy novel. Its crimson red sap, hence the name, was once highly prized in the ancient world as medicine, dye, and even dragon's blood in legends. Seeing these alien-like trees scattered across the rocky landscape feels like stepping into a sci-fi movie. Another curious inhabitant is the desert rose, a strange plant with swollen bottle-like trunks and pink flowers that seem too delicate for such a harsh environment. These plants have evolved to store water in their thick trunks, surviving long stretches of scorching heat. It's like nature decided to create its own art exhibit. Socotra's remoteness hasn't just shaped its wildlife, it's also influenced its people. The island is home to about 60,000 residents, mostly from the Socotri ethnic group. They speak Socotri, a language so ancient that linguists consider it a living fossil, with roots tracing back thousands of years. It's a language spoken only here, passed down through generations. Most locals live in small villages scattered across the island, relying on fishing, herding goats, and crafting goods from the island's natural resources. Modern technology has been slow to arrive, so many Socotri people still live much as their ancestors did, deeply connected to the land and sea that sustained them. For adventurous travelers, Socotra is a dream come true, if they can reach it. Flights are infrequent, and getting permission to visit can be complicated due to Yemen's ongoing political issues. But for those who make the journey, the island offers an untouched paradise of surreal landscapes, crystal clear beaches, and caves waiting to be explored. One of the most breathtaking spots is Calancia Beach, with powder white sand and turquoise waters that seem too perfect to be real. Hawk Cave, stretching nearly 2 miles into the earth, reveals ancient rock carvings and stunning stalactites that look like something from another world. Life on Socotra isn't easy. The island's harsh climate, limited infrastructure, and isolation mean that daily survival requires resilience and adaptability. Supplies must be carefully managed, as the island is often cut off from the outside world for months. Yet its people remain welcoming and proud of their unique heritage, living in harmony with one of the planet's most surreal environments. Socotra is more than just a remote island. It's a place where Earth's ancient secrets are still alive. Its isolation has protected its strange ecosystem from modern development, keeping it as wild and mysterious as it was thousands of years ago. It's a rare glimpse into what our planet might have looked like in a distant past, or perhaps on another world entirely. In Socotra, nature writes its own rules. It's a place where dragons bleed from trees, deserts bloom with life, and time itself seems to stand still. It's not just a destination, it's a living wonder, untouched by the modern world, waiting to be discovered. Socotra's alien beauty is unforgettable. But let's zoom back to the USA, where a remote village hides in one of the world's most famous natural wonders. Meet Supai. Tucked deep within the Grand Canyon lies Supai, a remote village so secluded that it can only be reached by foot, horseback, or helicopter. This hidden gem is home to the Havasupai tribe and is often called the most remote community in the continental United States. Despite its isolation, Supai has one of the most stunning backyards on Earth, home to some of the world's most breathtaking waterfalls. Supai isn't just hard to get to, it's practically a world apart. The nearest road ends 8 miles away at a place called Hualapai Hilltop. From there, visitors must hike down rugged desert trails, descend steep cliffs, and wind through narrow canyon paths. The journey isn't just a physical challenge, it's a passage through time, leading to a village where life has remained mostly unchanged for generations. The US Postal Service still delivers mail to Supai by mule, making it the only place in the country with a mule-powered postal system. Watching a line of mules loaded with packages trek through the desert feels like something from the Old West. But for the people of Supai, it's just another Tuesday. Despite its remote location, Supai is world famous for its stunning waterfalls. These aren't just any waterfalls. They're surreal turquoise blue cascades tumbling over red sandstone cliffs, creating picture-perfect swimming holes that seem like something out of a dream. The most iconic of these is Havasu Falls, where crystal clear water plunges over a 100-foot cliff into a shimmering pool below. Just downstream is Mooney Falls, an even taller waterfall surrounded by jagged canyon walls. Reaching Mooney Falls requires descending a near-vertical cliff using old chains, ladders, and carved footholds. A daring adventure not for the faint of heart. Beaver Falls and Navajo Falls add even more beauty to the canyon, creating a magical oasis that feels completely removed from the rest of the world. The stunning color of the water comes from high concentrations of calcium carbonate, giving the pools their signature electric blue glow. For the Havasupai people, life in Supai is built around a deep connection to the land. Their name means people of the blue-green waters, reflecting their spiritual and cultural bond with the surrounding canyons and waterfalls. The tribe has lived in this remote area for over 800 years, adapting to the harsh desert environment through farming, hunting, and trading with neighboring tribes. Modern life in Supai blends tradition with necessity. There's a small school, a general store, and even a tourist lodge for the thousands of hikers lucky enough to secure permits each year. But life here isn't easy. Supplies are limited, and emergencies can mean waiting hours for a rescue helicopter to arrive. In a place where nature rules, self-sufficiency isn't just a skill, it's a way of life. Visiting Supai isn't just a trip, it's a journey of endurance and discovery. The challenging 8-mile hike into the canyon is both grueling and awe-inspiring, with towering red rock walls and desert vistas stretching into infinity. Each step brings travelers closer to one of the most secluded and beautiful places in the United States. But reaching Supai isn't just about crossing rugged trails. It's about embracing the isolation, connecting with nature, and experiencing a way of life that has endured for centuries. It's a place where time slows down, where waterfalls sing ancient songs, and where the spirit of the land remains untamed and unforgettable. Supai isn't just remote, it's a hidden paradise that rewards those brave enough to seek it out. In this canyon of breathtaking beauty and ancient heritage, isolation isn't a challenge. It's what makes Supai truly magical. Supai may be remote, but what if we venture to an island so untouched, it's almost like stepping into another world? Let's explore Heard Island. Far out in the stormy waters of the Southern Ocean, over 2,500 miles, or 4,000 kilometers from mainland Australia, lies Heard Island, one of the most remote and mysterious places on Earth. This isolated volcanic island, surrounded by icy seas and fierce winds, is so distant that only a handful of people have ever set foot on its shores. It's a place where nature reigns supreme, untouched by human hands, and where Earth's raw power is on full display. Heard Island is dominated by Big Ben, a massive ice-covered volcano that includes Australia's highest peak, Mawson Peak, standing at 9,006 feet, or 2,745 meters. Unlike most remote places, Big Ben isn't dormant. It's one of the world's most active volcanoes. Its fiery eruptions light up the icy landscape, sending rivers of molten lava spilling down its frozen slopes. The contrast is surreal. A blazing volcano surrounded by glaciers and snowfields, framed by the relentless gray seas of the Southern Ocean. It's nature's ultimate contradiction. Fire and ice, locked in an eternal struggle. When Mawson Peak erupts, it's often only spotted by satellites, as no humans are there to witness it. Despite its harsh conditions, Heard Island is teeming with life, but not the kind most people imagine. Its shores are home to some of the world's largest colonies of king penguins, elephant seals, and fur seals. Every year, thousands of these hardy creatures gather on its rocky beaches to breed, battling the harsh winds and frigid temperatures. The island's waters are equally alive, filled with whales, orcas, and a dazzling array of fish and squid. Beneath the waves, a rich marine ecosystem thrives, protected by the island's status as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Its isolation has made it one of the least disturbed environments on the planet. The island's plant life, though sparse, is uniquely adapted to the cold, windy environment. Hardy grasses, mosses, and lichens cling stubbornly to the rocky ground, surviving against all odds. In a world where survival is a daily challenge, even the simplest forms of life are extraordinary. Visiting Heard Island is nearly impossible. There are no permanent residents, no airports, and no regular boat routes. The nearest inhabited land is the Kerguelen Islands, about 300 miles or 500 kilometers away. And even getting there requires a long ocean voyage. The journey from Australia can take 2 weeks, navigating some of the world's roughest seas, where storms are frequent and waves can tower as high as buildings. Even research expeditions are rare, limited to brief visits during the few summer months when the island's weather is slightly less brutal. Scientists brave these extreme conditions to study its unique ecosystems, monitor volcanic activity, and gather data on climate change. As the island's glaciers are rapidly shrinking, Heard Island's isolation has made it one of the last truly wild places on Earth. A land untouched by cities, roads, or modern development. Its forbidding landscape, roaring winds, and fierce storms have kept it fiercely protected from human influence. This remoteness is both a challenge and a gift. It means Heard Island remains a pristine natural laboratory, a glimpse into Earth's past, and a symbol of raw, untamed wilderness. Few will ever see its shores, but its existence reminds us of a world far beyond human reach, a place where nature's forces continue to shape the planet in ways both terrifying and beautiful. If Heard Island's raw nature feels isolated, just wait until we sail to the Kerguelen Islands, a windswept land nicknamed Desolation Islands. It doesn't get lonelier than this. The Kerguelen Islands are one of the most remote places on Earth, a lonely, windswept archipelago in the southern Indian Ocean. Located about 2,100 miles or 3,400 kilometers from Madagascar and 3,300 miles or 5,300 kilometers from Antarctica. This French overseas territory is so isolated that its only visitors arrive on research ships a few times a year. With no permanent residence, no airport, and some of the harshest weather imaginable, Kerguelen feels like the edge of the world. The Kerguelen Islands are notorious for their brutal weather. The winds are so fierce and constant that trees simply can't survive here. Instead, the landscape is dominated by jagged peaks, rocky coastlines, and sweeping tundra-like plains covered in moss and hardy grasses. The climate is cold, wet, and windy year-round, with howling gales that seem never to stop. Despite its harshness, the islands are stunningly beautiful in a rugged, almost otherworldly way. Towering mountains like Mount Ross pierce the clouds, while icy rivers carve deep valleys through the rocky terrain. The coastlines are lined with towering cliffs battered by relentless ocean waves, creating a landscape that's as dramatic as it is unforgiving. Surprisingly, life thrives in this isolated wilderness. The Kerguelen Islands are a haven for wildlife, especially seabirds, seals, and penguins. King penguins and gentoo penguins gather in vast colonies along the shores, while elephant seals and fur seals crowd the beaches in noisy territorial battles. The islands are also home to millions of seabirds, including albatrosses, petrels, and the rare Kerguelen tern, a bird found nowhere else on Earth. The surrounding ocean is rich with marine life, attracting whales and dolphins that patrol the frigid waters. This isolated ecosystem is so unique that the islands have been declared a protected nature reserve. Though uninhabited by civilians, the Kerguelen Islands host a small group of scientists, researchers, and military personnel stationed at Port-au-Français, a remote research base on the main island. Life at the base is challenging, with limited supplies, no internet or phone service, and the ever-present wind howling outside. The base is only resupplied 4 times a year by the French ship Marion Dufresne, which brings supplies and rotates personnel. The journey takes weeks, crossing some of the roughest seas in the world. In winter, the islands are almost completely cut off from the outside world. Kerguelen has a history as wild as its landscape. The islands were discovered in 1772 by French explorer Yves Joseph de Kerguelen-Tremarec, who mistakenly thought he had found a lush, fertile land perfect for colonization. What he found instead was a harsh, windswept wasteland where survival seemed impossible. Over the centuries, whalers, seal hunters, and explorers visited the islands, leaving behind scattered ruins of abandoned huts and rusting machinery. Some even tried to raise sheep here, but the harsh conditions quickly crushed any hopes of a permanent settlement. The islands remain a place where nature, not humanity, is in charge. The Kerguelen Islands are more than just remote. They're a symbol of Earth's untamed wilderness. Their isolation has preserved a world where wildlife roams free, glaciers carve ancient landscapes, and the winds sing their eternal song across the desolate plains. For the few lucky scientists and explorers who make it here, the Kerguelen Islands offer a glimpse into a world untouched by modern life, a place where nature's raw beauty and relentless power are on full display. Kerguelen isn't just a place, it's a frontier of the unknown, where humanity's presence is fleeting and the forces of nature rule with unyielding strength. It's a reminder that even in the 21st century, there are still places where the Earth remains wild, remote, and wonderfully untouchable. In conclusion, each one is a reminder of how vast, mysterious, and awe-inspiring our planet truly is. From islands barely touched by time to stations clinging to life in the harshest conditions, these places push the boundaries of what it means to live on the edge. But here's the question: could you imagine calling one of these places home? Or do you think there's an even more isolated spot we missed?